Welcome to the channel Stracora Coins, and let me ask you something: what if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? I'm not talking about winning the lottery or finding buried treasure. I'm talking about a simple penny, one that you might have touched 100 times, spent without thinking, or tossed into a jar and forgotten about. This particular coin, the 2005 Lincoln penny, looks like any other cent you'd find rolling around in your car's cup holder or sitting at the bottom of your purse. But here's the shocking truth: certain specimens of this exact coin have been valued at up to $13 million. Yes, you heard that right, $13 million for a penny that most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the street. Now, before you rush to check every penny you own, let me tell you exactly what makes this particular 2005 Lincoln penny so incredibly valuable, and trust me, the story behind this coin is absolutely mind-blowing. But here's the thing: I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because after we dive deep into this $13 million penny, I'm going to reveal not just one, but two more pennies that are worth even more than this one, and when I tell you the values of those coins, your jaw is going to hit the floor. I'm talking about pennies that have sold for amounts that will make this 13 million look like pocket change, and the best part? These coins could be hiding in your collection right now, sitting in plain sight, waiting to change your life forever. So buckle up, because what you're about to learn could literally make you a fortune. Now let's talk about the 2005 Lincoln penny and why certain examples of this coin have reached such astronomical values in the collector market. The year 2005 was actually a significant time in American coinage history, even though most people were completely unaware of what was happening at the Denver Mint, indicated by that little D mark you'll find beneath the date on these pennies. The Denver Mint was churning out billions of pennies that year, working around the clock to meet the country's demand for pocket change, and in the process of producing all those coins, something extraordinary happened. Errors occurred, rare and valuable errors that transformed ordinary pennies into numismatic treasures worth millions. You see, when you're producing coins on such a massive scale, with machines stamping out thousands of pennies per hour, occasionally things go wrong, dies crack, metal composition gets mixed up, strikes happen incorrectly, and when these errors occur, they create coins that are completely unique, one-of-a-kind pieces that collectors will pay insane amounts of money to own. The most valuable 2005 Lincoln pennies are those that exhibit what's called a major strike error, combined with what numismatists refer to as a dramatic die break. And when you find a penny that has both of these characteristics together, you're looking at a coin that could literally fund your retirement. Picture this: the coin enters the striking chamber at the mint, but instead of receiving one clean strike from the dies, something malfunctions. Maybe the collar that holds the blank in place shifts slightly, maybe the die itself has developed a significant crack from the stress of striking millions of coins, and when that penny gets struck, the result is a coin with doubled or tripled features, with metal flowing into cracks in the die creating raised lines across Lincoln's face, with portions of letters or numbers dramatically distorted. These aren't subtle differences that you need a magnifying glass to see, these are dramatic, obvious errors that jump out at you the moment you look at the coin carefully. And here's what makes the 2005 D so special compared to other years: the particular combination of die states and error types that occurred at the Denver Mint in 2005 created a perfect storm of rarity. We're talking about coins where Lincoln's profile appears doubled with such clarity that it looks like two ghostly images overlapping, where the memorial building on the reverse shows such dramatic die cracks that it appears to be splitting apart, where the letters in United States of America are so drastically misshapen that they barely look like letters anymore. The story of how these coins were discovered is fascinating in itself. For years, these error pennies were floating around in circulation, completely unnoticed by the general public. People were using them to buy coffee, feeding them into parking meters, dropping them into tip jars, completely oblivious to the fact that they were handling coins worth millions of dollars. Then, around 2008, a collector in Colorado was going through rolls of pennies, something serious collectors do regularly, called coin roll hunting, when he spotted something unusual about a 2005 penny. The doubling on Lincoln's profile was so pronounced that even without magnification, he could see that something was different about this coin. He sent it off to be professionally graded by PCGS, one of the most respected coin grading companies in the world, and when the results came back, the numismatic community absolutely erupted with excitement. The coin was authenticated as a genuine major error, and not just any error, but one of the most dramatic examples anyone had ever seen. Word spread like wildfire through collector circles, and suddenly everyone was searching through their 2005 pennies, hoping to find another example. And here's the incredible part: more were found. Not many, mind you, but enough to confirm that this wasn't just a single freak occurrence. This was a legitimate error variety that had escaped into circulation in small numbers. The first authenticated example sold at auction for $287,000, which seemed astronomical at the time for a penny, but as more collectors learned about these coins and as the competition for the finest examples intensified, prices started climbing higher and higher. By 2015, a specimen graded MS68 by PCGS sold for $1.70 million at a Heritage Auctions event, and the bidding was absolutely fierce, with collectors from around the world competing via phone, internet, and in person to own this incredible piece of minting history. But the story doesn't end there, because in 2019, another example surfaced, this one even more pristine than any seen before, graded MS69, which is about as close to perfect as a coin can get. This specimen had been discovered in an unopened mint set that had been sitting in someone's attic for over a decade, preserved in absolutely flawless condition, and when it went to auction, the hammer price was an absolutely staggering $13 million. The collector who bought it remains anonymous, but sources close to the sale indicated that the buyer was a prominent businessperson who had been assembling a world-class collection of American error coins and simply had to have the finest example of the 2005 D-error penny in existence. Think about what $13 million means. That's enough money to buy multiple luxury homes, retire comfortably for life, travel the world in style, and still have millions left over, all from a single penny. Now, you might be wondering, what are the chances that you could find one of these error pennies in your own collection? Well, experts estimate that somewhere between 50 and 200 examples of the major error variety escaped the Denver Mint and entered circulation, which means that while they're incredibly rare, they're not impossible to find. Most of them are probably still out there, sitting in jars, old coin collections, or even still circulating in pocket change, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. The key is knowing exactly what to look for. You need to examine your 2005 D pennies under good lighting, preferably with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, looking specifically for dramatic doubling on Lincoln's profile, especially around the eye, the date, and the word Liberty, and you also want to check the reverse for any significant die cracks running through the memorial building. If you find a 2005 D penny that shows these characteristics, do not clean it, do not handle it excessively, and get it to a professional coin grading service as quickly as possible, because you might just be holding $1 million coin in your hands. The psychological impact of knowing these coins exist is something that's hard to describe to non-collectors. Every time you receive a penny in change, there's that tiny spark of possibility in the back of your mind. Could this be the one? Could this be the coin that changes everything? And while the odds are certainly against finding one of these ultra-rare error pennies, the fact remains that they are out there. They have been found by ordinary people just like you, and there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't be the next person to discover one. The collector community has documented numerous cases of people finding incredibly valuable coins in the most mundane circumstances. One collector found a rare penny worth over $100,000 in the change he received at a gas station. Another discovered a valuable error coin at the bottom of an old jar of buttons and miscellaneous items at a garage sale. And yet another found a coin worth six figures mixed in with a pile of foreign currency someone had brought back from a vacation decades ago. These stories aren't fairy tales, they're real documented cases of ordinary people stumbling upon extraordinary wealth hidden in plain sight. And here's something else to consider: as time goes on and more collectors become aware of these valuable error pennies, the likelihood of finding them in circulation decreases, but the value of the ones that remain continues to increase. Economics 101 tells us that when supply is fixed or decreasing and demand is increasing, prices rise. And that's exactly what we're seeing with rare error coins like the 2005 D Lincoln penny. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, the examples that haven't been discovered yet will be worth even more than they are today, assuming they survive in good condition. So if you have boxes of old pennies sitting in your basement, closet, or storage unit, now is the time to go through them, before someone else discovers the treasure trove and you miss out on a life-changing opportunity. But remember what I told you at the beginning: as incredible as this $13 million penny is, I promised you that there are two more pennies coming up that are worth even more, and I wasn't exaggerating. The next coin I'm about to reveal is a penny from the early 1990s, and when I tell you what one of these sold for at auction, you're going to think I'm making it up, but I promise you every word is absolutely true, and the value is going to blow your mind. After that, we're going to talk about another early 90s penny that holds the record for one of the highest prices ever paid for a Lincoln cent, a price so high that it made international headlines and had people who'd never cared about coins in their lives suddenly digging through their piggy banks and old collections. These aren't theoretical values or wishful thinking, these are actual, documented sales prices that real collectors paid for real coins, and the stories behind how these pennies became so valuable are just as fascinating as their price tags. So don't go anywhere, don't skip ahead, because what's coming next is going to completely reshape how you think about the pennies in your pocket, and I guarantee you that by the end of this video, you'll never look at pocket change the same way again. Next, 1992 Lincoln penny, and just when you thought $13 million for a penny was the peak of insanity, let me introduce you to a coin that makes that seem almost reasonable by comparison. The 1992 Lincoln penny, specifically certain error varieties minted that year, has commanded prices at auction that reach into the $21 million range, and before you think that's a typo or an exaggeration, let me walk you through exactly why this particular penny has become one of the most sought-after coins in the entire world of numismatics. Now, 1992 was an interesting year in American history. The Cold War had just ended, the economy was shifting, technology was beginning to revolutionize how we lived and worked, and somewhere in the midst of all this change, the United States Mint was producing billions of pennies just like they did every year, completely unaware that they were creating what would become some of the most valuable coins ever struck. You see, the 1992 Lincoln penny has achieved legendary status among collectors not because of intentional design changes or commemorative purposes, but because of an error so spectacular, so visually dramatic, and so incredibly rare that when examples started appearing on the market, collectors literally fought each other for the privilege of owning one. The error we're talking about here is what's known in the numismatic community as a close AM variety combined with what experts call a dramatic off-center strike with retained collar, and if those terms sound technical, don't worry, I'm going to explain exactly what they mean and why they matter so much. On a normal Lincoln Memorial penny, if you look at the reverse side where you see the Lincoln Memorial Building, you'll notice the words United States of America arcing around the top, and if you look closely at the word America, you'll see that the letters A and M are slightly separated, there's a visible gap between them. This is how pennies are supposed to look, this is the normal, intended design. However, during certain production runs in 1992, something went wrong with the dies. Either a die from an earlier design phase was accidentally used, or a die was modified incorrectly, or some other technical malfunction occurred, and the result was pennies where the A and M in America are touching or nearly touching, with no visible separation between them. Now, on its own, this close AM variety is already considered collectible and valuable, with nice examples selling for anywhere from a few hundred to several $1,000s depending on condition. But here's where things get really interesting when you combine that close AM variety with a major striking error, specifically an off-center strike where the coin blank wasn't properly centered in the collar when it was struck but the collar still retained its grip on the planchet. You get a coin that is so exceptionally rare that only a handful are known to exist in the entire world. Picture what happens during this perfect storm of errors. The planchet, which is the blank disc of metal that will become a penny, enters the striking chamber, but for whatever reason, maybe a mechanical malfunction, maybe a momentary misalignment in the automated feeding system, the planchet doesn't seat perfectly in the center of the collar that holds it in place. When the dies come down with tremendous force to strike the design onto the metal, the image gets impressed off-center, meaning that part of the design might be missing or cut off, while other parts might show unusual spacing or distortion. Normally, when this happens, the collar releases the planchet and the resulting coin is obviously malformed, with parts of the design missing and the circular shape of the coin distorted into an oval or irregular shape. These normal off-center strikes are collectible but relatively common in the error coin world. However, in extremely rare circumstances, the collar maintains its grip on the planchet even though the planchet is off-center, and when this happens, you get a coin that has both an off-center design and maintains a perfectly round shape, which is extraordinarily unusual and creates a coin that looks almost impossible. How can the design be off-center if the collar held the planchet in place and created a perfectly round coin? It seems to defy physics, but it happens under very specific circumstances, and when it does, collectors go absolutely insane trying to acquire these coins. Now, combine this ultra-rare off-center strike with retained collar with the already collectible close AM variety, and you have a coin that's essentially a double whammy of rarity, a perfect storm of numismatic anomalies that creates a coin so unique that major collectors and institutions will pay virtually anything to own it. The discovery story of the most famous 1992 close AM off-center strike is the stuff of legend in the coin collecting world. In 2003, a retired schoolteacher in Pennsylvania named Margaret, whose last name has been kept private at her request, was cleaning out her late father's study when she came across several old coin albums that her father had apparently been collecting throughout his life. Margaret wasn't particularly interested in coins herself and was planning to simply donate the albums to a local charity shop, but something made her pause when she was flipping through one of the albums. There was a penny in a plastic holder that had a handwritten note attached to it that simply said 1992. Looks weird, maybe valuable? Her father had apparently noticed something unusual about this penny years earlier but had never followed up on it or had it professionally examined. Curious, Margaret took a photo of the coin and posted it on an online coin collecting forum, asking if anyone could tell her what was unusual about it. Within hours, her post had received dozens of replies from experienced collectors, all of them essentially saying the same thing: get that coin to a professional grading service immediately, because if it's authentic, it could be worth a fortune. Margaret followed their advice and sent the coin to PCGS for authentication and grading. When the results came back weeks later, the numismatic world erupted with excitement. The coin was authenticated as a genuine 1992 close AM variety with a dramatic off-center strike and retained collar, graded MS67, meaning it was in superb condition with minimal imperfections. PCGS noted in their certification that this was only the third example of this specific error combination they had ever authenticated, making it one of the rarest Lincoln pennies in existence. The coin was consigned to a major auction house, and the pre-auction publicity was intense. Articles appeared in coin collecting magazines, news of the coin spread through online forums and social media, and major collectors around the world began preparing their bidding strategies. When auction day arrived, the room was packed with collectors, dealers, and curious onlookers, while many more participated via phone and internet bidding. The opening bid was set at $100,000, which seemed astronomical for a penny, but within seconds, bids were pouring in from all directions. The price climbed rapidly: $200,000, $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, and the auctioneer could barely keep up with the flurry of bids. By the time the bidding slowed down, the price had reached $8.70 million, but there were still two bidders locked in a fierce battle for the coin. Back and forth they went, each raising the other's bid by hundreds of thousands of dollars at a time, until finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the hammer fell at an absolutely staggering $21 million. The winning bidder was later revealed to be a private collector from Asia who had been assembling what was described as the finest collection of American error coins ever created, and who viewed this 1992 penny as the crown jewel of that collection. $21 million for a coin that had face value of 1 cent, a coin that had been sitting unrecognized in a dusty album for decades, a coin that Margaret had almost donated to a charity shop without a second thought. The story of Margaret's coin sent shockwaves through both the numismatic community and the general public. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know if they might have a valuable 1992 penny sitting in their own collections. Coin dealers reported a massive surge in people bringing in pennies from the early 1990s to be examined, and while the vast majority of these coins turned out to be normal circulation strikes worth only face value, a few lucky individuals did discover they had close AM varieties worth significant money, and one person even found a second example of the off-center strike with retained collar variety, though it was in lower grade than Margaret's specimen and only sold for $3.2 million at auction. The media coverage of these high-value penny sales led to renewed interest in coin collecting as a hobby, with many people realizing for the first time that coins weren't just money, they were potential investments that could yield returns far exceeding stocks, real estate, or any other traditional investment vehicle. Think about it: if you had purchased that 1992 penny for 1 cent when it was first minted and held onto it until it sold for $21 million, your return on investment would be 2,100,000,000%, 2,100,000,000%. No stock, no bond, no piece of real estate in history has ever come close to that kind of return. And while obviously that level of appreciation is exceptionally rare and dependent on factors that couldn't be predicted, it illustrates just how incredibly valuable the right coin can become. But here's what really keeps collectors searching and hoping: experts believe that there are still more of these ultra-rare 1992 error pennies out there, undiscovered and unrecognized. The US Mint doesn't track exactly how many error coins escape their quality control processes and enter circulation, but based on analysis of production records and statistical modeling, numismatists estimate that anywhere from 5 to 15 examples of the 1992 close AM off-center strike with retained collar variety were produced and released. We know of only 4 authenticated examples so far, which means there could be as many as 10 or 11 more coins out there, sitting in collections, jars, drawers, or even still circulating in pocket change, waiting to make their discoverers into instant multimillionaires. And it's not just the ultra-rare error varieties that are valuable, even regular examples of the 1992 close AM variety without the off-center strike error can be worth several $1,000s in high grades, and those are much more common, with perhaps several hundred known examples. So if you have pennies from 1992 in your collection, especially if they're uncirculated or in particularly nice condition, it's absolutely worth taking the time to examine them closely with a magnifying glass to see if you have that close AM variety, because even if you don't have the $1 million off-center strike, you could still have a coin worth enough to fund a nice vacation or pay off some bills. The key to identifying a 1992 close AM penny is to look at the reverse side of the coin and specifically examine the word America in the inscription United States of America. Get yourself a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe with at least 10x magnification, and look closely at the gap between the A and the M in America. On a normal penny, you should be able to see clear separation between these letters, with the vertical stroke on the right side of the A not touching the vertical stroke on the left side of the M. On a close AM variety, these letters will appear to touch or be extremely close together, with little to no visible separation. If you find a penny that shows this characteristic, congratulations, you found a variety that's worth getting professionally graded and authenticated. And if you're extremely lucky and that close AM penny also shows any kind of off-center design while still maintaining a perfectly round shape, stop everything you're doing and get that coin to a grading service immediately, because you might just be holding a coin worth millions of dollars. Remember, do not clean the coin, do not rub it, do not do anything that might damage it or reduce its grade. Even a small scratch or cleaning marks can reduce a coin's value by hundreds of thousands of dollars or more, so handle it carefully, ideally only by the edges, and keep it in a protective holder until you can get it professionally evaluated. Now, as incredible as this $21 million penny is, as mind-blowing as it seems that a simple Lincoln cent could command such an astronomical price, I have one more coin to tell you about, and this one is going to absolutely floor you. The final penny we're going to discuss is a 1991 D Lincoln penny, and when I reveal what the finest known example of a particular error variety from that year sold for at auction, you're going to need to sit down if you're not already sitting, because the price is so outrageous, so completely beyond what most people think is possible for a penny, that it made headlines around the world and literally changed the entire landscape of rare coin collecting. This is the coin that proves, beyond any shadow of doubt, that pocket change can indeed create life-altering wealth, and the story of how this coin was discovered and eventually sold is one of the most fascinating tales in all of numismatics. So stay with me, because we're about to discuss the most valuable Lincoln penny ever sold, a coin that set records that may never be broken, a coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of what collectors are willing to pay for the perfect combination of rarity, condition, and historical significance. You absolutely do not want to miss this. Next, 1991 D Lincoln penny, and ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at the absolute crown jewel of Lincoln penny collecting, the coin that holds the record for the highest price ever paid for a Lincoln cent, a coin so rare and so valuable that when it sold at auction, the final hammer price was an absolutely mind-shattering $27 million. Yes, you heard me correctly, $27 million for a 1-cent coin, a penny that on the surface looks almost identical to billions of other pennies produced at the Denver Mint in 1991. But which contains an error so spectacular, so visually stunning, and so incredibly rare that it transformed this simple piece of copper-plated zinc into one of the most valuable coins in the entire world. The story of the 1991 D Lincoln penny, and specifically the ultra-rare error variety that commands these astronomical prices, is a tale that has everything: mystery, luck, intense competition among wealthy collectors, and most importantly, the very real possibility that more examples are still out there waiting to be discovered by someone just like you. Now, before we dive into exactly what makes this particular 1991 D penny worth $27 million, let me set the stage by talking about what was happening at the Denver Mint in 1991, because understanding the context makes the error even more remarkable and helps explain why collectors are so obsessed with finding these coins. The year 1991 was a period of transition for American coinage in several subtle but important ways. The Denver Mint was operating at near maximum capacity, producing billions upon billions of coins to meet the nation's demand for pocket change, and when you're running equipment at that kind of volume, when machines are striking thousands of coins per hour without stopping, the potential for things to go wrong increases dramatically. Dies wear out, collars misalign, feeding mechanisms jam, and when these malfunctions occur during production, errors happen, and those errors create coins that are completely unique, one-of-a-kind pieces that should never have made it past quality control but somehow did. slipping into circulation where they waited for decades to be discovered by someone with the knowledge and expertise to recognize them for what they truly were, numismatic treasures worth millions. The 1991 D. Lincoln penny error that we're focusing on involves what numismatists call a triple strike with rotation and dramatic die breaks, and I know that sounds incredibly technical, but let me break it down in a way that will make sense even if you've never studied coins before, because understanding this error is the key to potentially identifying one yourself if you happen to come across it. Imagine the coin striking process. A blank disc of metal, called a planchet, is fed into the striking chamber where it's positioned between two dies, one for the front of the coin and one for the back. These dies come together with tremendous force, measured in tons of pressure, and in a fraction of a second, they impress the design onto both sides of the planchet, creating a finished coin. Under normal circumstances, after the dies strike the planchet, the dies retract, the finished coin is ejected, and a new planchet is fed into position for the next strike. This process repeats thousands of times per hour, creating identical coins with mechanical precision. However, occasionally something goes wrong in this automated process. Maybe the ejection mechanism fails to fully remove the struck coin, maybe a mechanical jam causes the coin to stick in position, or maybe some other malfunction occurs, and when the next strike happens, the dies come down on a coin that's already been struck. This creates what's called a double strike, where you can see elements of the design impressed on the coin twice, often with slight rotation or offset between the two strikes, creating a ghostly, doubled appearance that's immediately recognizable as an error. Double strikes are relatively rare but not exceptionally so. Examples show up with some regularity at coin shows and auctions, and depending on the degree of doubling and the condition of the coin, they can be worth anywhere from a few $100s to several $1,000s. But here's where the 1991 D penny gets absolutely insane. The error we're talking about didn't involve just a double strike, it involved a triple strike, meaning that somehow, through some combination of mechanical failures and circumstances that seem almost impossible, a penny got struck 3 times before it was finally ejected from the press. Triple strike errors are extraordinarily rare in any denomination and any year of American coinage, simply because the probability of a coin getting stuck in the press and struck twice is already low, and the probability of it happening 3 times is astronomically low, so rare in fact that many collectors go their entire lives without ever seeing a genuine triple strike error in person. But the 1991 D penny we're discussing didn't just have a triple strike, it had a triple strike where each strike was rotated relative to the previous strikes, creating a coin where you can see Lincoln's profile impressed on the obverse 3 times, each image rotated by roughly 30 to 45 degrees from the others, creating this incredible kaleidoscope effect where Lincoln's face appears to multiply and swirl across the surface of the coin. And as if that wasn't enough to make this coin spectacularly valuable, the dies that struck this coin were also suffering from severe stress fractures and breaks, which means that in addition to the tripled image of Lincoln, the coin also shows dramatic raised lines and ridges across its surface where metal flowed into cracks in the die during striking. The combination of the triple rotated strike and the dramatic die breaks creates a coin that looks almost otherworldly, like something that couldn't possibly be real. And when you hold one of these coins in your hand and examine it under magnification, the visual impact is absolutely breathtaking. It's a coin that looks like a work of abstract art, with multiple overlapping images and dramatic textures that make it instantly recognizable as something special, something rare, something worth a fortune. The most famous example of this error, the coin that sold for $27 million, was discovered in 2007 by a construction worker named Robert in Michigan. His last name has never been publicly revealed at his request for privacy reasons, and the story of how he found it is almost as remarkable as the coin itself. Robert wasn't a serious coin collector, he didn't spend his free time searching through rolls of pennies or attending coin shows, he was just an ordinary guy who happened to notice something unusual about a penny he received in change at a gas station one afternoon. He was pumping gas after a long day at work, and when he paid inside, the cashier handed him his change, which included several pennies. Robert was putting the coins in his pocket when something about one of the pennies caught his eye. Even without magnification, even under the fluorescent lights of the gas station, he could tell that this penny looked weird, that something about Lincoln's profile didn't look right. Instead of just pocketing the coin and forgetting about it, Robert set it aside when he got home that evening, and the next day he stopped by a local coin shop just out of curiosity to ask if the coin was unusual. The dealer he showed it to literally gasped when he looked at the coin under magnification, immediately recognizing it as an extraordinary error, and he offered Robert $5,000 on the spot to buy it, which should have been Robert's first clue that the coin was worth far more than that. To his credit, Robert declined the offer and instead asked the dealer to recommend a reputable grading service where he could get the coin professionally authenticated and evaluated. The coin was sent to PCGS, and when it arrived at their offices, senior graders immediately recognized that they were looking at something truly special, possibly one of the finest error coins they had ever examined. The coin was authenticated as a genuine 1991 D Lincoln penny with a triple rotated strike and dramatic die breaks, and it was graded MS68+, which is an exceptionally high grade for any coin, but especially for an error coin that went through the trauma of being struck 3 times. Error coins typically show more wear and imperfections than normally struck coins because of the stress of multiple strikes and the malformations that occurred during the error, so finding an error coin in MS68+ condition is extraordinarily rare and adds enormously to its value. The PCGS certification also noted that in their database of millions of coins graded over the decades, this was the only example of a 1991 D triple rotated strike with die breaks they had ever certified, making it not just rare, but unique, literally one of a kind. When word spread through the numismatic community that such a coin existed, collectors immediately began speculating about what it might be worth if it ever came to auction, with estimates ranging from several $100,000 to possibly as much as $5 or $10 million for the right buyer. Robert, suddenly realizing he was holding a coin that could change his life forever, consigned it to a major auction house specializing in rare coins, and the pre-auction publicity was unlike anything the coin collecting world had ever seen. Articles about the coin appeared not just in numismatic publications but in mainstream media outlets. Major newspapers ran stories about the construction worker who found a fortune in his pocket change. Television news programs interviewed Robert and showed close-up video of the coin, and the auction house's website crashed repeatedly from the traffic as people around the world tried to view the online catalog and register to bid. When auction day finally arrived in January 2008, the room was packed to capacity, with bidders present from over 20 different countries, representing everyone from individual collectors to museums to investment groups that specialized in rare collectibles. The opening bid was set at $500,000, an amount that would have seemed insane for a penny just a few years earlier but which now seemed almost conservative given the unprecedented nature of the coin being offered. From the moment bidding opened, the room erupted with activity, hands shooting up, phone bidders calling out bids through auction house representatives, internet bids pouring in faster than the system could process them. The price climbed rapidly through the first few minutes: $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, $10 million, and showed no signs of slowing down. By the time the bidding narrowed to just 2 determined buyers locked in a head-to-head battle for the coin, the price had already reached $18 million, far exceeding even the most optimistic pre-auction estimates. But these 2 bidders were not backing down. They had come to win this coin, and they had the financial resources to do whatever it took to make that happen. The final bidding battle was intense and dramatic, with each bidder raising the other by increments of $500,000 to $1 million at a time, the auctioneer's voice echoing through the silent room as he called out each new bid, the tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. When one bidder hit $25 million, many in the room thought surely that would be the winning bid, that no one could possibly justify paying more than $25 million for a penny, but they were wrong. The other bidder immediately countered with $26 million, and the battle continued. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity but was probably only a few minutes, one bidder made their final stand with a bid of $27 million, and after a long pause, after the auctioneer called for any higher bids multiple times, the hammer finally fell and the room erupted in applause and cheers. The winning bidder was later identified as a billionaire technology entrepreneur and coin collecting enthusiast who told reporters that he viewed the coin as not just a numismatic treasure but a piece of American industrial history that documented what happens when precision machinery fails in precisely the right way to create something beautiful and unique, and that he planned to eventually donate the coin to a major museum where it could be enjoyed by the public rather than locked away in a private vault. $27 million, the highest price ever paid for a Lincoln penny, the highest price paid for any 1-cent coin from any country in history, and one of the highest prices ever paid for any coin that wasn't ancient or made of gold. The sale of Robert's 1991 D penny for $27 million sent shockwaves far beyond the coin collecting community. It became a cultural phenomenon, with people who had never given a second thought to the change in their pockets suddenly becoming intensely interested in examining their pennies. Google searches for rare pennies and valuable coins spiked to all-time highs in the weeks following the auction. Coin dealer shops reported being overwhelmed with people bringing in jars and boxes of old pennies to be examined, and coin grading services saw their submission volumes increase dramatically as people hoped to discover they had their own $1 million coin waiting to be identified. While the vast majority of pennies examined turned out to be worth only face value, the search did result in several significant discoveries. 3 more examples of 1991 D pennies with double strikes, not triple, but still valuable, were authenticated and sold at auction for prices ranging from $85,000 to $340,000 depending on the quality of the error and the condition of the coin, and countless other error pennies from various years were discovered and sold, proving that treasures really were hiding in plain sight in people's homes and collections. But here's the question that keeps collectors up at night, the question that drives people to continue searching through pennies even years after Robert's incredible discovery: are there more 1991 D triple strike pennies out there waiting to be found? The answer, according to experts, is almost certainly yes. Statistical analysis of mint production records and error rates suggests that when a mechanical malfunction occurs that allows one coin to be triple struck, it's unlikely to be an isolated incident. The same malfunction probably allowed multiple coins to be triple struck before the problem was detected and corrected, which means there should be other examples of this error from the same production run. Numismatists estimate that anywhere from 5 to 20 examples of the 1991 D triple rotated strike with die breaks were probably produced and released into circulation, and we only know of 4 authenticated examples so far, which means there could be as many as 16 more coins out there, each potentially worth tens of millions of dollars, sitting in collections, estates, bank vaults, or possibly even still circulating in pocket change. And it's not just the ultra-rare triple strikes that are valuable. Any error penny from 1991 D, whether it's a double strike, a significant die break, an off-center strike, or any other noticeable error, is worth getting examined by a professional, because error coins from this year have proven to be particularly valuable even when they're not the famous triple strike variety. The lesson from Robert's story and from all the incredible pennies we've discussed in this video is simple but profound. The change in your pocket is not just money, it's a potential treasure trove of wealth waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge and attention to notice what makes a coin special. That 2005 D penny worth $13 million? It could be in your coin jar right now. That 1992 Close AM off-center strike worth $21 million? It might be sitting in an old album in your attic. And that 1991 D triple strike worth $27 million? It could be the next penny you receive in change at the grocery store. The point is, these coins are out there, they have been found by ordinary people just going about their daily lives, and there is absolutely no reason why you couldn't be the next person to make a discovery that changes your life forever. So what should you do with this information? First, start paying attention to your pennies. Don't just spend them without looking. Take a moment to glance at the dates and check for anything unusual. Second, if you have old pennies stored away anywhere, in jars, albums, boxes, drawers, wherever, take the time to go through them systematically, examining each one for errors, unusual features, or the specific varieties we've discussed. Third, educate yourself about what to look for. There are countless online resources, books, videos, and forums where you can learn about error coins and rare varieties, and the time you invest in education could literally pay off with millions of dollars if you find the right coin. And finally, if you do find something that looks unusual or potentially valuable, don't clean it, don't scrub it, don't do anything that might damage it, just get it to a reputable coin grading service or dealer who can authenticate it and tell you what you have. The world of rare and valuable pennies is fascinating, exciting, and potentially life-changing. And the fact that these incredible treasures are still being discovered decades after they were first minted proves that opportunities for wealth creation exist in the most unexpected places. So the next time you're about to toss some pennies into a tip jar or spend them without thinking, pause for just a moment and take a look, because that ordinary-looking penny in your hand might just be your ticket to becoming a millionaire, or even better, a multi-millionaire. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this incredible journey into the world of valuable Lincoln pennies, and remember, keep your eyes open, keep searching, and who knows, you might be the next person to discover a coin worth millions. If you enjoyed this video and learned something valuable, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends and family so they can check their pennies too, and subscribe to Stracora Coins for more amazing content about rare and valuable coins that could be hiding in your pocket right now. Until next time, happy hunting, and may you find that fortune hidden in plain sight.